It's time for another installment of Paleozoic Puzzles. The Paleozoic was a time of dramatic change in Earth's history, particularly when it came to our planet's climate. As we know from previous episodes, life still had to deal with these changes. And today, we are going to track the changes in marine life through one of the biggest shifts in Earth's history, the largest mass extinction event, and the beginning of the end of the Paleozoic. Before we start, I want to say a big thank you to my supporters for their continued support. If you would like to help me make these videos possible and gain access to exclusive content, check out the link below. Life at the close of the Devonian was pretty comfy overall. The climate was warm and there were plenty of nutrients in the water for animals. But all of that would change as the Devonian drew to a close. The first sign that something was up would have been the water temperature. For much of the Paleozoic, average global temperatures sat around 20 degrees Celsius or about 68 degrees Fahrenheit. This made the world feel a bit like a greenhouse and allowed life to thrive in even the coldest waters. But towards the end of the Devonian, ocean temperatures began to drop. By the beginning of the Mississippian, they had dropped by around 5 degrees Celsius. This may not sound like much, but it was enough to drastically change the makeup of life on Earth. Warm water animals began to retreat towards the equator, while new, more cold-tolerant animals moved in from the poles. On land, the forests which had begun in the late Silurian would begin to die back. Instead, we would see the rise of more desert-like conditions. We can see this change reflected in the fossil record. One example is the trilobites. These animals had shells made of calcium carbonate, so they were well suited for warmer, shallower waters. Towards the end of the Devonian, we begin to see a decline in their diversity, an event which would only get worse in the following period. Another group, the Brachiopods, were also at their peak during the Devonian. They were well suited for the warm waters of the time, but unlike the trilobites, they did survive the mass extinction event at the end of the Devonian. However, they never really recovered and instead began to take on a different form. Those that survived were smaller and thinner-shelled than their Devonian counterparts. This would allow them to grow faster and reproduce sooner, traits which are common in animals living in harsh environments. This is probably a good thing too, because their predators were disappearing. But what caused this mass extinction? Well, scientists aren't entirely sure, but there are a few good candidates. One theory is that the changing climate was to blame. While a 5 degrees Celsius drop might not seem like much, it was enough to wipe out a huge portion of species. So I do believe that the climate played at least some role, but I don't think it was the sole cause. It seems likely that other factors were at play, such as falling oxygen levels and possibly volcanic activity. Together, these would have created a real hell of a situation for many marine organisms. One of the most famous victims of this extinction event was the Placoderms. These were a diverse group of jawed fish which had bony armor. Placoderms were very successful during the Devonian and were likely apex predators in many habitats. But at the end of the period, they would go extinct, leaving behind no known descendants. Scientists have found evidence that suggests that low oxygen levels may have been the cause of their extinction. Their armor, while effective protection from predators, would have been a burden in low oxygen environments. Fish typically rely on the oxygen dissolved in water to breathe, but some fish, such as lungfish, were able to adapt to low oxygen environments by breathing air. Lungfish are actually the closest relatives of tetrapods, or four-footed vertebrates, and their ability to survive in low oxygen environments may have given their fishy descendants a leg up when they moved onto land. Low oxygen levels may have also contributed to the decline of corals. Corals were present during the Devonian, but they really took off during the Mississippian. Warm, shallow waters are typically where we find fossils of early corals, but we see little evidence of them during the Devonian in these areas. Instead, coral diversity exploded during the Mississippian when the climate cooled and oxygen levels dropped. This suggests that they may have been better adapted to the cooler, lower oxygen waters of the time. Corals are not the only ones who were able to make a comeback. As the Mississippian progressed, the oceans would begin to recover from the mass extinction. Life slowly returned to what it had been at the close of the Devonian. The recovery, however, was not complete. The event had caused a massive loss of biodiversity, and it would take millions of years for life to fully recover. One animal which did make a comeback was the nautiloid. These are an extinct group of mollusks closely related to modern squids and octopuses. During the Devonian, they were extremely diverse and lived in all of the world's oceans. But the mass extinction caused their diversity to plummet. Even though they bounced back somewhat during the Mississippian, they never reached the same level of success. They would go on to survive until the end of the Permian, 40 million years later. That is, over twice the length of time that they had been around during the Paleozoic. I mention them not only because they are cool, extinct beasties, but also because they can help us understand how the oceans recovered after the mass extinction. As I mentioned in a previous episode, nautiloids come in a wide variety of shapes and sizes. One of the main factors influencing their size is water temperature. Like most marine animals, they have a metabolic rate which is influenced by temperature. In warmer waters, their metabolism would be higher, leading to larger growth. After the mass extinction, we see a trend of smaller nautilites. Not only does this fit with the expectation of a colder climate, but it also fits with their ecology. Smaller animals require more food per unit of mass than larger animals. So smaller nautilites would have needed more food to meet their energy needs. This may explain why we don't see a rapid increase in their size after the mass extinction. There was simply not enough food available to support larger growth. This would remain the case until the ecosystem fully recovered. While this is just one example, it illustrates a key point about recovering from a mass extinction. It takes time for the ecosystem to recover. This means that even if the environment is suitable for larger animals, they may still struggle to reach those larger sizes. It's not enough for the environment to simply be suitable. There needs to be enough resources to support larger growth. At the end of the day, the end of the Devonian was a time of great change. For life on Earth, the planet's climate was drastically altered, leading to major changes in the global ecosystem. It would take hundreds of thousands of years for things to return to normal. When they did, the world was not quite the same. Many groups of animals which had thrived during the Devonian went extinct, such as the Placoderms. Others, such as the Trilobites and Brachiopods, struggled to survive. Still others, like corals and nautiloids, were able to bounce back. The Devonian would end on a somber note, but it would also be a period of opportunity for some. With the apex predators gone, there was nothing to stop the rise of the sharks. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and share it with your friends. If you'd like to see more of these videos, consider supporting me. Your support allows me to continue making these videos and to do more with my channel. A special shout out to my top supporters. If you would like to see your name here, check the link below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you won't miss out on any future content. You can also follow me on social media to see updates and fun stuff. Thank you all once again for watching, and I'll see you all next time.